to West Virginia Urban Gardener. I'm glad you came back to see us. Got another great tip for you today. Today we're going to talk about Quickstart potatoes. And I'm sure you've seen videos, you've watched people in all different ways of planting potatoes and healing potatoes. We'll get to that in later videos, but today what we're going to talk about is how to get that early start potato. How do you get that early growth? And how do we ensure that our potato is actually going to grow? Well, it all starts with the potato. And particularly it starts with what we call a seed potato, or a tuber. And these are potatoes that have actually formed, and you can get a little closer look here, into what we call chits. Now these chits start from small dormant areas that we call eyes, and as you can see on this potato there's multiple little eyes, and it's these eyes that are going to actually form these chits, and it's from these chits that we're going to actually grow the stems that are going to produce the potatoes. But there's steps to get there first. Now there's a traditional method of simply planting your potatoes with eyes, not these eyes, or planting them once they form these chits. Both can work very well, but I like to ensure that my potatoes are going to have a good, healthy growth. And so the first thing that I do is I want to stimulate the root system, because after all it's the root system that draws in the nutrients that's going to ultimately feed our potato seeds and our stems to produce these tubers or potatoes. And that starts with a simple cup, and this is just a little 16-ounce cup. And as we step over here, as you can see in this cup, I've drilled some holes into the bottom. I've also drilled some holes into the sides. That's to allow for the root system to grow. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to fill this with about 2 inches of soil. Okay, as you can see, I placed about 2 inches of soil in here, and that's going to form that root growth system. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I am going to put a little perlite or vermiculite, actually. We've got into this area here. So here we have the perlite, here we have the vermiculite. Okay, you can see the difference. Now the reason I'm adding the vermiculite is that will help to maintain some of the moisture in the soil so it can feed the roots. And so I will mix that in to my potting soil, and then I will add a little bit of the perlite, and the perlite is simply just for aeration and to allow the roots to grow through the soil a little easier and allow oxygen exchange in the base of the roots and carbon dioxide exchange from the leaves. But it all promotes the root growth and allow the roots to reach the nutrients a little bit easier. So the next thing I'm going to do is simply plant my seed potato. So we simply put the potato in here, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill that potato up with soil. So we'll fill that up until it's completely full, and gently tap the sides, and that will help some of the moisture get down. You can see that some of the stems are sticking up. That's okay. that will be just fine. No harm will come to this potato. Well, once it's eaten, it'll get a lot of harm because we'll eat it. The other, we're going to plant this potatoes. We're going to, again, go through 2 inches of soil. I add my little bit of vermiculite there. Mix it in, my moisture holder. I will plant a little bit of the perlite there. And one thing just keep in mind is that the vermiculite is not a soil additive. It does not help with the nutrition. It doesn't add minerals that are needed. Rather, it just promotes root growth. So this potato here, we're going to plant here. Again, we're going to plant that on our 2 inch of soil. We cover it. And voila. So we've got 2 different looks here. Got one above ground, one completely below ground. Now the next thing, what will happen as these potatoes begin to develop into roots, you will see the stems of these plants start to grow. And as you can see on this plant here, you got small leaves that are just beginning to come out. And eventually what will happen is that your Quickstart potato, after just a couple of weeks, will look like this. Now we've got a potato plant. Okay, we started off with a seed potato, and now we've got a potato plant. And just to kind of show you the root system that develops, let me just give this a little squeeze and shake, and as you can see, the nice round roots that you've got. So this plant is going to take in a lot of good nutrients, and we can be assured that because of the extent of the root system that's developed. Now, just to give you a little more information on potatoes, sometimes it's not necessarily when you plant your potatoes, because that's often a question that's asked, when do I plant my potatoes? Biggest thing is just look into the area that you're around. Soil temperature is everything. If a soil temperature is too cold, the potato will not grow. And potatoes like a soil temperature around 60 to 65 degrees. One of the things that I feel is a little more damaging to potatoes, not necessarily the growth, because you're not going to go out there and dig in cold temperatures and try to plant a potato. However, you can plant potatoes in cold temperature, even when there's the threat of frost. Because potatoes are going to be planted so deep into the soil that the layer of soil will actually keep them warm, protect them. Even the frozen ground, if it does become frozen over top, will keep those potatoes warm underneath. So you're actually pretty safe in planting potatoes in cold weather, as long as the sprout doesn't come up before the last frost, because that can damage your plants, which ultimately can determine how much potato growth you're actually going to get. The more damaging situations that I see with potatoes is, number one, overwatering. Overwatering it causes your potato to actually rot. Extreme temperatures, and these are temperatures when the soil level gets above 80-85 degrees. To show you an example, because this was my own mistake of an overwatering, here I have 2 potato seeds that I've actually planted. One of them has nice good growth here. As you can see, the leaves and the stems are starting to grow, and the other, the limbs have kind of just died off. And if you look at the soil here is very moist versus a little drier soil here. And if I squeeze, you can see that this is firm. It doesn't bend, whereas this bends very easily. So that's an example of a potato that was overwatered and rotted. Now with these, one last tip with these Quickstart potatoes, you don't have to water these potatoes every day. The soil does not have to stay moist 24/7. Water it every couple of days. If you see the soil really dry out, give it a little bit of water. It doesn't need much water for growth. It actually doesn't even need light. Once they start to develop into these stems here or into the plant that you see here, that's when they first need light. Even a seed potato at this stage doesn't require light to develop that root system, and certainly this doesn't, where the potato stem hasn't yet reached the ground. But in a couple of weeks we should see that coming up above the ground. We should see a nice root system like we've had with this plant here. This one is ready for planting. If you have any questions, tips, suggestions, please don't hesitate to send a message or subscribe. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions or take any tips that you might have that I might be able to use. But until then, happy gardening from West Virginia Urban Gardener.